Good evening. I'm called to order tonight's meeting for the Salem Housing Authority for the City of Salem for Monday, January 22nd, 2024. Would the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Nishioka.
Here.
Vice Chair Phillips, absent. Commissioner Gwynn.
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Here.
Commissioner Hoy.
Here.
Commissioner Nordyke. Here. Commissioner Varney.
Here.
Resident Commissioner Villegas.
Here.
Chair Stapleton.
I'm here. All right, thank you. All right, we're going to have Linda Nishioka filling in for our vice chair tonight. So do we have any additions or deletions?
Yes, I move to approve the additions to the agenda.
Second. Thank you. Would you like to speak to your motion?
As I understand it, an addition was made to the Housing Authority information report, what was it?
So there's an addition, there was an error in the numbers for August for rapid rehousing, so we just adjusted it from a 1 to a 16.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there any other comments? Seeing none, would the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Here.
Commissioner Hoy.
Aye.
Commissioner Nordyke.
Aye.
Commissioner Varney.
Aye.
Commissioner Nishioka.
Aye.
Vice Chair Phillips, absent. Commissioner Gwynn.
Aye.
Resident Commissioner Villegas.
Aye.
Chair Stapleton.
Aye, motion passes. And I jumped right over the Pledge of Allegiance. So we're going to step back, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Hoy if you would please lead us in the pledge. I keep thinking I'll have a meeting where everything will go smoothly, but it hasn't happened yet. All right, moving on then, we do not have anybody signed up for public comment. So, Vice Chair, for the evening, would you like to handle the consent calendar, please?
Do I get to read them all?
If you would like to. We
Or
typically
I
read them,
just-
but
I
you need a
typi-
motion first.
Thank you. I move to accept the consent calendar.
I'll second.
I'm going to give that to Commissioner Gwynn.
Fast on the buttons. So this is my first time. Be patient. So the consent calendar consists of 3.1A, the meeting from the January Housing Authority, January 24th, January 24th draft minutes from Housing Authority. 3.3A, revision of the admissions and continued occupancy for public housing. 3.3B, the revised Section 8 administrative plan, and that completes the consent calendar.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, would the recorder please call the roll?
Commissioner Hoy.
Aye.
Commissioner Nordyke.
Aye.
Commissioner Varney.
Aye.
Commissioner Nishioka.
Aye.
Vice Chair Phillips, absent. Commissioner Gwynn.
Aye.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Aye.
Resident Commissioner Villegas.
Aye.
Chair Stapleton.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. We have no public hearings tonight or special orders of business, but we do have our project management report. And also, would you mind, I know there was some questions on our both 3.3A and 3.3B that I thought were really interesting that were brought up through email today. So maybe you could touch on that in your project update as well.
Thank you. I'm Nicole Utes. I'm the Housing Administrator for Salem Housing Authority, and I did receive some great questions regarding our revisions to our Section 8 plan and our continued occupancy plan. In regards to these waivers, that we have continually progressed with being a moving to work agency, and we actually submitted for these waivers back when we submitted our application, and Housing and Urban Development said that they could take up to a year to decide if they would accept those waivers. So as soon as we came forth just less than a month ago here to have these plans reviewed so that we could start our new year into the moving to work agency. They came back with an approval of these waivers. They were so well written that they went ahead and approved them. That says a lot, but we also put up the case, and I wanted to bring this up because there was fear that there could be potential fraud. In anything that our agency does, there can be potential fraud, and we have to be alert all the time to different scenarios that could go on. But our goal in mind is to be progressive to our tenants and our residents, especially those trying to get into our program, and how difficult these two can be a barrier to getting in. I'm not sure if you've ever had to put FMLA paperwork in at the doctor's office or various locations. Many of them are now charging for document production. And so this has become a hurdle for us to actually get the proper documentation and verification to get a minimal, what we call a minimal deduction for the client to move forward in the process. Sometimes it's held them up from 6 to 8 weeks waiting on pharmacies or doctor's office to get this verification in. So we felt this was an important waiver to ask for. The load also on our staff and our staffing capacity. This alleviates another step for this minimal deduction. And of course, I had provided you with some documentation that our average households claiming child care's expenses in a total of $2,351 in child care annually, that would only reduce their rent by $59 a month. We would also take note that if a household had previous deductions or didn't have previous deductions and are now asking for the max allowable deduction, then we would request verification of those new increase in those deductions. So we do have some barriers and stopgaps to try to help eliminate any fraud. But we also realize that this is that we're basically piloting this moving to work program. And so when we report annually to Housing and Urban Development, this is something we'll review of whether this is working for the agency or it's not working for the agency. But it's supposed to be a benefit to both our clients and our staff in this situation.
Thank you for that. And just to make clear to the other counselors, what I had asked was if there was, what there might be potential abuse of self-reporting the amounts, and that if that had any impact, would have significant impact. And so, as Ms. Uzes explained, they have ways to oversee that and not be concerned about that potential risk, or at least it would be red flagged and they'd be able to see that.
And I should also add, in other programs, low-income housing tax credits allow for assets up to $5,000 verification for self-certification. So this isn't new necessarily to our agency in monitoring for self-certifications.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up that question, and I thought it was important to share with everybody else. Ms. Utz, do you want to talk about the project report, management report that you have?
Yes, thank you. First and foremost, I want to say that we have successfully closed Yaquina Hall into a permanent finance loan as of this morning. The actual closing of that is completed. So many people don't know and realize, but we go from construction and we go into what we call a stabilization period. And our goal is to get those stabilized within, the project stabilized within a 3-month period of time. And we've successfully completed stabilization into Yaquina Hall. So for the first time in 8 years of my life, I do not have a Yaquina Hall meeting on my calendar for that project, and it kind of feels unreal, but we're very excited to get that into full operational status and into permanent financing for the agency and the members that live there. I also wanted to highlight that on Wednesday into the evening, from about 11:15 into the early morning hours, we had a water incident of a tenant that left on, unfortunately, water in their sink running. And I have to say that that community has come together because there were 12 residents out there with their mops, their towels, everything, helping to keep that water from going into other areas and cleaning it up before our mechanics could even arrive. We even had one to bring a shop vac out from their unit and hold it over our final fire panel system, which saved us from a $5,000 expense. So they've really come together, and they're really a community that wants to keep that building in good condition and help our agency out. So it could have been a much larger expense for us to repair that, and thankfully they were there to help us out. Beyond that, I want to say that Sequoia Crossings is well on track for grand opening on January 30th. We do have about a 3-day delay due to weather, but that will just be the courtyard equipment that won't be installed for the grand opening event. But we hope that everybody joins us on the 30th at 1 p.m. to help celebrate that beautiful project coming online. And with that, many people don't realize, but our referrals are all coming from micro-shelter, transitional shelters, or sheltering locations. So with Sequoia Crossing coming online, we're going to be freeing up approximately 20 sheltering locations for the next 3 months until we hit full occupancy at 60 units. So that'll definitely help with movement in our continuum of care, and we're very excited about, probably the most excited about that. I also wanted to highlight that we are thrilled to report that as of November 30th, 2023, SHA has exceeded our housing placement goals for our rapid rehousing program through the Governor Kotek's executive order. We have not only exceeded our placement goals, but we have only expended 68% of the budget that was for that program. The governor has extended the spend down date for these funds through June 30th of 2024, and we look forward to helping more individuals. We're presently at 82 that we've housed, so we've even housed more since this report date and time. So that's great news, and we look forward to continuing that work. We also have we intend to have in the next program management report a community outreach section so that you all can understand all the different various community outreach events that Salem Housing Authority staff have been attending. I wanted to highlight that Highland Neighborhood Association was one of them that we attended recently. They were so well received of our agency and Sequoia Crossings, and they have been sending us numerous resources for that project, and we're so happy to be a part of that neighborhood. Along lines with that, we also attended Northgate Neighborhood Association. They also were warm welcoming of Sequoia Crossings as a new project in line with our neighborhood. They have also gifted Sequoia Crossings a beautiful painting that can go into that building to be a part of their neighborhood. That is our goal, is we do want to be a good neighbor to all of our neighbors for all 14 different projects that we have throughout Salem. We were also a part of the most recent Church of the Park grand opening event for the showers added to the Family Center, and it was exciting to see and hear about the potential for people that are looking forward to going to Sequoia Crossings. So very heartwarming events. In alignment with our wellness program, we have remodeled our break room and added additional wellness features for our staff in there to enjoy a break away from their day-to-day grind, have a nice lunch that they can feel some calmness and wellness. We really are promoting in 2024 wellness into our agency. And lastly, we are holding an event called Share the Love in the Wallace Park on February 13th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And we will be coordinating with many community partners. We'll have resources and referrals. We'll have a coordinated entry assessment at Wallace Marine Park, coffee and food, and many of our staff will be present during that time.
Sounds like you all have been very busy and will continue to be very busy.
Yes.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, Member Nishioka.
Thank you. I'll just simply comment again, as I always do. I really appreciate all the information you bring to us and know how well Salem Housing Authority is doing. Really is a great thing for our community. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Why not? I
Sure.
can back that up
Sure.
100%. And part of me just wants to give you all the money and say, would you please take care of this? Because you're really good at this. So thank you, Nicole.
Yes, thank you so much. All right, well, with that, we do not have anything else on our agenda, so we are adjourned.
Thank you.
I'll call to order this meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency for the City of Salem for Monday, January 22nd, 2024. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Board Member Stapleton.
Here.
Board Member Nishioka.
Here.
Board Member Phillips is absent. Board Member Gwen.
Here.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Here.
Board Member Hoy.
Here.
Board Member Nordike.
Here.
Board Member Varney.
Here.
Chair Hoy.
Here. Councilor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Not tonight.
All right. We have anybody signed up? We do have one person signed up for public comment to the Urban Renewal Agency. So Mike Herron, if you would come forward, hit that green button for me so the light comes on. Introduce yourself with either your address or your ward. And as a reminder, you have 3 minutes. When the yellow light starts to flash, that means you have a minute left. When the red light comes on, that means your time's up.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, City Councilors, and City staff. My name is Mike Herron. I am here representing the Salem Group Convention Center Company, which is the management company for the City of Salem's Convention Center located at 200 Commercial Street Southeast. I'll keep my comments very brief tonight. As you review and discuss Salem's urban renewal areas this evening, we simply wanted to remind you that the original plans or the original design of the Salem Convention Center anticipated future expansion to the southwest of the building on the streets bounded by Trade and Commercial Street. And as operators and managers of that convention center for the last 19 years, we strongly believe that an expansion of the convention center would be a great thing for the convention center and for downtown. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Stapleton, the consent calendar.
Thank you. I move approval of the consent calendar.
I will second that.
Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. Tonight we have item 3.1A, the January 8th, 2024 draft urban renewal agency minutes. Item 3.3A, consideration of applicants recommended for appointment to the Downtown Advisory Board. And item 3.3B, the fiscal year 2023 Urban Renewal Agency Annual Financial Report. And that concludes the consent calendar.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Board Member Nishioka.
Aye.
Board Member Phillips absent. Board Member Gwen.
Aye.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Aye.
Board Member Hoy.
Aye.
Board Member Nordike.
Aye.
Board Member Varney.
Aye.
Board Member Stapleton.
Aye.
Chair Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. We have no public hearings, but we do have a special order of business tonight. And I see Ms. Rutherford has joined us.
Good evening, Kristen Rutherford. I'm the Community Planning and Development Director. This evening we have a staff report and a presentation that is providing council and the community with an update on the city's urban renewal areas. The staff report provides some general background on urban renewal, how it works, as well as summaries of each of the urban renewal areas, including the maximum indebtedness levels, the amount of acreage within each urban renewal area, when we estimate closing those urban renewal areas, as well as estimates based on current values for how much money would return to the city upon closure of those urban renewal areas if they were to close today. So I'm not going to recap that, and our presentation is not going to speak to that since that's all in the staff report. But I do have staff here this evening that will be sharing a presentation that will speak to what has been accomplished within each urban renewal area, the highlights, the bigger projects, as well as still what is left to be accomplished and kind of the future of those urban renewal areas. And then we will be open to any questions that you might have afterwards. So I'm going to have Sarah Long and Tori Banford go ahead and provide a presentation on the Salem's 8 urban renewal areas.
Thank you.
Okay, good evening, Chair Hoy and agency members. Sarah Long, Urban Development Division. Sorry, still getting used to our new names. So I'm going to do a brief overview of our first 4 urban renewals for you this evening, and then I'll hand it over to my colleague, Tori Banford, who will go over the other 4. In total, we do have 8 urban renewal areas within the City of Salem. The majority have been in existence for quite some time, so we thought it would be nice to do a little recap on some of the projects that some people may not be aware of that the urban renewals either either contributed to financially or had a role in terms of maybe getting grant funds or things of that nature, along with, as Kristen said, some of the things that we're working on now that we're looking at towards the future, since a lot of our projects don't happen the quickest. It's easy to lose track of them kind of over time. So let's see. So this is not the best map. Sincerest apologies. Our URAs are scattered throughout the city, and so it's really difficult to do a great map showing all of them at one given time. Let's do this mouse that is completely delayed. Here we go. So just as an overview, the yellow where I'm trying to scroll is our West Salem urban renewal area. So it's right across the bridge. Here we have our riverfront downtown urban renewal area. Like it says, it encompasses our downtown core. Off in this orange area is North Gateway. That is our largest urban renewal area. If we scan over here to the pink, I think the pink, that is really, okay, that's like more red, so my apologies. This is our Fairview urban renewal area. No, that's McGillcrest. Here's Fairview in the green, and then purple is Mill Creek. So my apologies, we should zoom in on that for the future, probably for everybody. But they're very scattered throughout the city, which is part of the reason why what you'll see is a lot of the projects are very specific to the area. Each area has different needs, whether it's tied to the industry that's there, the businesses there, the type of land that's there, or the transportation access. And so this just kind of gives a variety of, depending on where they're at, that's where the focus has been for those projects. So starting with Riverfront, as I stated, it is our downtown core area. It's the one that probably most people are the most familiar with. Some of the various accomplishments are listed up here. I have some other ones I just wanted to make sure I brought attention to. And one of the earliest ones that I think a lot of people may not be aware of is thanks to the urban renewal, we were able to do environmental remediation for the Riverfront Park. So we were able to clean it up. It used to be a brownfields. And thanks to that, we were able to then do the developments that we're able to enjoy today, such as the carousel, the historic railroad bridge, the Peter Courtney Bridge, along with the amphitheater. So that was more of an infrastructure kind of, a way that we were able to contribute. As we heard in public comment, we've got the convention center. So the development along with funding, Urban Renewal still owns the convention center as well. So we work with management. So far, we have completed 3 phases of streetscape within the downtown area. So as you're walking about, it's something for folks to hopefully enjoy a little bit more, and there's more phases to come. We've contributed to the Arches Day Center, and that was back in 2019. The police facility in 2020. Co's on State Street, which was 148 workforce rental housing units. We've contributed to the Union Gospel Men's Facility in 2021. We've taken the lead on the demolition of the former UGM and ABC Music sites that's now known as Block 50. And we've also contributed and worked with in getting the Holman Hotel up and going. In terms of what we're doing next and what's coming up, we're very excited that the construction of Rivenwood rental housing is underway and should be completed this spring. We are hoping to announce the selection of the developer for Block 50 in the near future. We've got the completion of the Riverfront former Whitlock's building. That's going to be a mix of uses, along with completion of the redevelopment of the former Green Thumb building. That's coming up soon. We've got redevelopment of Liberty Plaza, which is going to be a mix of commercial and retail space. We have Union Street bike-friendly improvements that are going on and still upcoming. And continuing our grant program. Our grant program has been vital in leveraging with both public-private dollars for folks looking to recruiting business into the downtown area, expanding, renovating. We've used them for historic preservation, funding rental housing units, the outdoor dining platforms, along with building improvements that have helped with crime and prevention. So there's a big variety of things that Riverfront's been able to accomplish, and a lot of that's because a lot of things happen in our downtown core. And so our programs are really kind of targeted to make sure that we're tackling a lot of different areas of need. So that's downtown. Moving on to North Gateway, so that's up the far north. It encompasses Portland Road, Silverton Road, Fairgrounds corridor area. As I stated, it is our largest urban renewal area in the city. The accomplishments in North Gateway are more infrastructure related, so it's going back to based on the location, the types of projects that we've seen. One of the biggest things that we did with North Gateway, which is unusual for any of our urban renewals because we haven't done them, is we've actually increased the amount of maximum indebtedness that we can incur here. Back in 2019, we were able to add about 23 million in terms of how much we were able to collect because there was a lot of activity happening, but there's still a lot of work to do, and so the community supported being able to do that work. We've partnered with CTEC, a little over $2 million we were able to provide in various phases in order for them to complete that facility and those educational opportunities for the students. We've partnered with the Salem Housing Authority in terms of the Redwood Crossing project. So we were able to purchase the property and then partner with them in terms of the development. So we're able to contribute to affordable housing in a different kind of a way. We've continued to do streetscape and development infrastructure projects, so it's a little different than downtown where it may not be the streetscape that you see as much as you're walking about, but it's more of the infrastructure you need. So it's the sidewalks, it's the crossings, and then it's also looking at, do we need to upgrade the water, the sewer, the different infrastructure so that when development comes in, it isn't as cost prohibitive for them to come in and redo a site, especially some that may have environmental issues and things like that along the way. So we're able to sort of help partner with our private partners on those things. And then we also have grants. Same thing, we have a grant program. Each URA that has a grant program, it's a little bit different, once again, because of the area. So a lot of the grants that are happening in the North Gateway area are for more of the redevelopment, a lot of expansion of existing buildings. We also allow for different types of permanent kind of equipment. So when we're talking industrial processing, things like that, so that folks can expand their product line, add jobs, things of that nature, we're able to assist in those ways as well, which is a little unique for this particular area. Upcoming, we're actually able to partner on some bond projects, and I think that's going to be really exciting. It's some projects that we didn't think as part of the urban renewal we'd be able to tackle because we didn't have the funds, and so we're able to kind of leverage those dollars to get a lot more out of it. One of those is going to be the Silverton 17th Street Road improvements. We had already planned to do a turn signal to add some lights, but now with the additional funds for the road, we're going to be able to do sidewalks, we're going to be able to do some infrastructure, water, some crossings for pedestrians, and then tie that into the existing bond project. So we're merging those projects to get more bang for our buck, and also it'll save us money so we can do more, which works out really well. Several years back, we purchased the property at 2640 Portland Road. Some may know of it as the former DMV site or the former Zamora Auto site. For the interim, it's been able to accommodate some of our different houseless needs, whether it was housing, whether it was services for our different providers. And that's something where we're right now in the process of doing some development and market planning to figure out what's best for that site, what's next for that site, what's best for the community, what's going to, make sense for developers in this market. And so we're going through those steps right now with our consultant team. In the future, we're planning to do some more improvements to Portland Road. We were able to do some streetscape and infrastructure improvements on part of it, but now with the bond dollars, we'll be able to do more. So once again, it's going to be those sidewalks, those crossings. It's going to be looking at the water, the sewer, all that infrastructure under the ground that's going to help our developments in the future. And then we're going to continue with our grant program. It's continued to be a very active program. And we're going to keep moving on with it. We also have funds specifically for affordable housing set aside, and we also have funds in a grant specifically for development infrastructure. So we can make sure we hold those funds if people start getting down the road and realize that they need some additional funds. McGillcrest, it's pretty straightforward. This one was really created with the intent of improving the McGillcrest corridor between 12th and 25th. So we've really, up to this point, the URA's role has been for the design and also for the match for all of our grants. We've been fortunate enough to receive grants from the state along with grants from the federal government, our most recent RAISE grant. And so it's URA that we've been able to do to sort of partner in order to receive those. The other thing we've done is we have been able to create a grant program in order to bring in Salem Fruit when they were looking to potentially have to leave Salem and their facility in West Salem wasn't accommodating their growth. We were able to create a grant program to move them into a vacant facility and get them up and going to keep them in Salem and allow them to grow as well. So that was really exciting. Upcoming is really the construction of the McGillcrest project. So we'll keep partnering and putting our funds into that. And that's really sort of the future. This one will stop collecting increment in 2024. So there isn't a lot of upcoming other than sort of the intent of the URA all along. And the last one I'm going to talk to you about briefly is our Jory URA. It was not shown on the map only because it's so tiny you can't see it. It's literally just a single property. It was our very first single property urban renewal area, and it was done specifically for affordable housing. So it's able to, the project gave us 36 units of affordable housing, and it works as basically a property tax rebate program. So there's nothing given up front until the project is completed. The project pays their property taxes, and then after the city receives their urban renewal portion, then we're able to basically rebate that for a set amount of time. That's done through a development agreement. So this was the first one that we've done in a city, and really the future of this one is that the basis of it is what created what is now our single property urban renewal program for affordable housing that's available for any developer throughout the city. That as long as it's not an urban renewal area, we can create these single property urban renewals to try and help incentivize affordable housing in a different way. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Tori, and he will take you over with the next 4 URAs.
Thank you, Kristen, Sarah. Good evening, agency members. I'm Tori Banford, Economic Development and Urban Renewal Project Manager with the Community Planning and Development Department. Consider the downtown of West Salem, located in the flat southern area and roughly bound by Glen Creek Drive northwest, the Willamette River, and Elola Drive northwest. This urban renewal area was established in 2001 for a broad range of purposes. Some noteworthy completed projects include the 12-foot wide multi-use path system that connects Wallace Marine Park to the historic Union Street Railroad Bridge, as well as bike and pedestrian accessibility improvements along Edgewater Street Northwest and Rosemont Avenue Northwest. 2nd Street Northwest is under construction now. The new road section will improve multimodal connectivity and is already resulting in significant private investment to convert old abandoned industrial buildings to new development and uses. The Oregon fruit that Sarah referenced that moved to the McGillcrest area was a result of accessibility to I-5, and the product of that was a vacated Oregon fruit building that's now being converted as a result of this public investment in infrastructure. So exciting things are happening out there as we speak. Rain Suites being demolished, which was kind of the blighted condition that justified the creation of West Salem or renewal area, among other things as far as connectivity and park improvements. But it's exciting to see these happening now. The matching redevelopment grant, similar to other grants in urban renewal areas, is matched to private investment and is also adding new building and expanding manufacturing operations and jobs in the West Salem area. The Mill Creek Industrial Park or renewal area is an effort between the City of Salem and the State of Oregon to convert surplus Department of Corrections land to a corporate center to add jobs for the community. The area was established in 2005 and located between Kula Boulevard Southeast, Deer Park Drive Southeast, and Turner Road Southeast. The district has funded public infrastructure projects to connect underserved areas of Southeast Salem. Completed projects include 100 acres of mitigated wetlands in the center of the campus that made development possible. Without this, basically the whole area is in southeast flat, and so wetlands were on every property that were intended for development. So it was a necessity going into it to mitigate up front those wetlands. And now it serves as a thriving 100-acre central wetland, having increased connectivity with the trail system, but also serves as a stormwater facility. So that as new development comes into this location, they don't have to do as much, they don't have to allocate as much land to stormwater detention and so because just more dedicates more land to development, to jobs. Another critical project that adds to the water infrastructure was the completion of the Mill Creek Reservoir. We had pump stations and other projects, again listed in the staff report and on the list. I'll spare you some time and not go through all of it. But there's a lot happening to the southeast. Now, most people head southeast for Costco. As you take Kubler to get out that way, you'll see everything happening to the east, and that's all a result of the agency and the state partnering together to build out that area. Some critical future projects include improvements for pedestrian safety along Lancaster Drive Southeast, between Carson Drive Southeast and Kubler Boulevard Southeast, as well as improvements to Kubler Boulevard and Turner Road Southeast. The South Waterfront Urban Renewal Area was established in 2007 and is consequential to South Downtown as well as for all Salem. Funded the transition of the abandoned paper mill that was the blight on that area for decades, aside from the time it was operational and providing jobs, of course. But it did block the view of it did block the Pringle Creek and what you could see as far as the connection to the Willamette River and access to the park. And so now what you're seeing as a result of this investment is mixed use now development that's located there. So ground floor commercial residences up above. City gained recognition also with Public Works and the efforts by the city and to daylight Pringle Creek, where the future path will allow even more access to Riverfront Park and Minto Brown Island Park. The agency recently acquired the area needed for the Pringle Creek extension, as well as development-ready property located 295 Commercial Street Southeast, which is now referred to as Block 45. And finally, the former the Mill Creek Corporate Center of the 80s and early 80s to 2000. The Fairview Industrial Park urban renewal area provided the resources to extend public infrastructure to further utilize land supply for new jobs. Located between Airway Drive Southeast, Fairview Industrial Drive Southeast, and Madrona Avenue Southeast, areas established and thriving industrial park that employs thousands. A good example of this is Yamasa USA that recently completed a $13 million manufacturing capacity improvement project where a matching grant was instrumental in the addition. The urban renewal area no longer collects increment. The agency changed the boundary in 2023 to direct remaining project cost savings to improve Salem Airport security for commercial air service. There are also grant funds to help with new development at the airport. That's what I have for you today. Thanks.
All right, well, that's quite a list. When you really, when you think about it over time, that is an amazing accomplishment. That's really transformed our city.
Yes, our urban renewal areas have accomplished a significant amount, over what I think the first one was created in the mid-70s, with the newer ones, in the last decade or so. They've resulted in just tremendous private sector investment and tremendous public sector investment for community benefit and for job creation. So I wanted to share what we have accomplished, what is still left within urban renewal plans to be accomplished to help frame the conversation or future conversations as we look to closing down the urban renewal areas that are sort of reaching the end of their lifespans and their maximum indebtedness, and as we look to creating future urban renewal areas, so that you've got all of that background to consider when you look at what revenue will be returning to the tax rolls, what percentage would return to the city, and then what we could accomplish in creating new urban renewal areas over the next 20 years.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Rutherford? All right. Well, thank you. That was really great. That was really helpful background information. We are on to information reports. We have one. Are there any questions on that? All right. The Urban Renewal Agency is adjourned. I'll call to order this meeting of the Salem City Council for Monday, January 22nd, 2024. If the recorder will please call the roll.
Counselor Stapleton.
I'm here.
Counselor Nishioka.
Here.
Counselor Phillips absent. Counselor Gwynn.
Here.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Here.
Counselor Hoy.
Here.
Counselor Nordike? Counselor Varney?
Here.
Mayor Hoy?
Here. All right, Counselor Stapleton, do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda?
I move additions to the agenda.
I will second that.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Nishioka. Counselor, to your motion?
Thank you.
Oh, hold on one second. I got it. There you go.
Thank you. Yes, we have two. We have correction to the City Council Rules Committee report, and then also recommended policy statement and priorities. Those are items 3.3D and 5B.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Varney?
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton?
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka?
Aye.
Counselor Phillips absent. Counselor Gwynn?
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez?
Aye.
Counselor Hoy?
Aye.
Counselor Nordike?
Aye.
Mayor Hoy?
Aye. Motion passes. All right, it is now time for council and city manager comments. I am going to start, and I would like to invite up Dulcie Tenacone. I want to introduce you to her. If you could just come on up, Dulcie, that would be great. Dulcie is an intern in my office this year from Willamette University. And you could just stand right there. I just wanted everybody to get a chance to meet you. Dulcie was born and raised in Sri Lanka. She studied at Tokyo International University in Japan for 2 years. She's a double degree undergrad at Willamette, majoring in politics, policy, law, and ethics, and international relations at Tokyo International University. And I'm really excited to have her working in our office this year. She's working on community engagement with an emphasis on younger adult engagement. So we're working on several projects, and super excited to see that work come to fruition. So thank you, and I would just want to introduce you to everybody. So thank you. All right, anybody else? Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge the most recent death that we had in our downtown at a recent, was it last week? My time in my mind doesn't exist in the same realm anymore, but I believe it was last week. Wanted to give condolences to the family and let you all know that Councilor Nishioka and I have been working with staff on a plan to address safety for pedestrians in our downtown core. I recently met with the Can Do Neighborhood Association and DAB today, in fact, and received a really warm welcome with the ideas that we have. And so we plan on bringing that forward next month to get your all approval with our ideas. So I look forward to making some positive movement on something that's really important to me personally, but also I think will benefit the city as a whole. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor. Anybody else? Councilor Nordike.
Thank you so much. And now I'm feeling bad and bring my intern to the party. I, by the way, am a huge fan of Willamette University. I've worked with Willamette kids many times before. They're outstanding. So I'm so delighted to hear that we have an intern in the city manager's office. I also wanted to point out that in case you didn't tune in for the Salem Housing Authority meeting earlier tonight, due to our rapid rehousing program, we have an additional 82 persons who have been housed just within a matter of months, thanks to the leadership of the Salem Housing Authority staff and their executive director, Nicole Utes. There are folks working every day quietly to end homelessness one person at a time in the city of Salem. And the work that the Salem Housing Authority does is instrumental to that work. So too is the work of all of our amazing community partners. But I did want to highlight that. The Salem Housing Authority meetings are streamed online just like these, and if you want, you can take a look at the progress report, and it'll give you details on the 82 individuals that have been rapidly rehoused. In fact, they're so rapidly being rehoused that the report actually says 72. They've added 10 since the publication of that report, which is pretty incredible. So looking forward to the new year. I appreciate everyone who reached out during the snowstorm that we had. I think that anytime we have a snowstorm or an ice storm, this is an important opportunity for neighborhoods to build resilience. Every household should have their own emergency kit. The Salem Fire Department posted on their social media some materials that you should be putting in your own survival kit for your own household. As they say, make sure to put the oxygen on yourself, put on your own oxygen mask before helping others. But if every neighborhood can do that and work together, then we can survive pretty much anything that Mother Nature throws at us. And I, for one, would love to see that. So thank you so much. Looking forward to this evening.
Thank you, Councilor. Anybody else? Councilor Hoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I received a note from Jay Hansen of CJ Hansen. He says, this is from our office cleaning vendor. Would you please read or present at the City Council meeting? Our street parking has become a convenient and known place to go and meet those who are selling drugs. It's unacceptable. His cleaning service said, we showed up at 10:45 last night to clean. When we pulled into the parking lot, another car followed us, pulled up beside our car and asked us for drugs. We've had a few other instances where people have confronted us late at night while cleaning, CJ Hansen. We were hoping that it might be possible to switch cleaning days from Thursday to the weekend so we can arrive during the daylight hours. As I've been driving around town, which I do a lot because I deliver food everywhere, and I came in tonight with prepared statement, and I found myself drawing, which I don't do. I drew a map, and the map was the highlights of problem areas in Salem where it's visible what we're dealing with in terms of houselessness and camping, and likely, I think, the addiction crisis and the mental illness that seems to coincide in those spaces. If you take Kubler exit toward commercial, it's good till you get close to commercial, then it starts to get bad. If you take a left, it gets worse in the parking lot of US Food Chef store and the Walmart there. If you go further north on I-5 and you take 22 and head east and you get off on Lancaster, it's up the ramp, and if you take a left, it's to the right in the parking lot of Winco and Coastal and Subway and Thai Beer and Sherry's. The mess is huge. If you travel further north on Lancaster, there are pockets of areas that are just really bad and very visible. Somehow over the holidays, the underpass of Market Street and I-5 has become a thing again, and it's not being taken care of fast enough for me, and I know not for others. Fisher Road is bad again. Not only the front, which is City of Salem property, but by the freeway, which is Oregon State Patrol's responsibility. There's a lot going on. We still have Wallace Marine. We have Front Street and the Truett Brothers mess that's happening there. And I just want to say out loud that this does not fall on Gretchen Bennett at the city. This falls on all of us. And it's taking a very beautiful place and making it painful to look at. So I hope that we can do more. If I have an action item, it's a request that we could get this Oregon State Patrol or ODOT and their 2 weeks to somehow agree with the 72 hours that the city has to offer before a property is cleared. Because the folks that are doing this kind of living know where to go and when to leave and when to come back. And it just keeps going around and around and around. So I would like to see better for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anybody else? Mr. Staley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I just wanted to highlight an item that is on our agenda this evening that I am extremely proud of and happy that we're here at this point this evening, and that's item 6C, our annual audit and presenting that annual audit. There are no words that ring truer and cause more excitement in a city manager's heart than the words "a clean audit." Audit findings are a terror. and are a cause for community concern. And where we ended up with our audit this year, clean and no findings, no recommendations is where we always want to be. I just want to read from the audit. CPA Pascarella writes, in our opinion, based on our audit, the report of other auditors, the financial statements referred to above present fairly and in all material respects the respective financial position of the government activities, the business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the City of Salem, Oregon, as of June 30th, 2023. They don't just hand that out. They spend time with us reviewing hundreds of documents and spending hours and hours with staff and with our team to verify that we are managing the city's finances appropriately. So thank you for that. And in addition to this clean audit, the City of Salem also received the Distinguished Comprehensive Financial Report Award from GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, for our 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. This report allows the city to go beyond the minimum requirements of applicable financial reporting standards in preparation of the ACFR. You can ask Josh what that acronym stands for, which supports the spirit of transparency and full disclosure, and then to recognize individual governments that succeed in achieving that goal. The goal of the program is not to assess the financial health of participating governments, but rather to ensure that the users of their financial statements have the information they need to do so themselves. So just congratulations to Josh Eggleston, Jenny Matichek, and Jeremy Morgan, and the rest of our accounting division for their professionalism and for being at your service to the City of Salem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Staley, and congratulations to you and to the entire staff for that great work. We appreciate it. All right. I'm not seeing any other hands, so we will move on to proclamations. I would like to invite up Dr. Irvin Brown, the Vice President of the Salem-Keizer NAACP, to receive the proclamation recognizing Black History Month. All right. Welcome, Dr. Brown. Whereas in 1915, Dr. Carter Godwin Woodson, a noted black scholar and son of former slaves, founded the Association of Study of African American Life and History. And whereas Dr. Woodson initiated Black History Week, February 12, 1926, and for many years the second week of February, chosen to coincide with birthdays of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln, was celebrated by African Americans in the United States. Whereas it is imperative that each of us learns about, sheds light upon, and condemns the inhumanity of injustices and inequities that Black and African Americans continue to experience and endure, but moreover, that each of us takes action to realize true reforms. And whereas the Salem City Council has denounced racism as a systemic issue, creating disparate outcomes in many areas of life, including family stability. On January 25, 2021, Council adopted Resolution 2021-2 condemning white supremacy and racism, and Resolution 2021-3 affirming that racism is a public health crisis. And whereas Black History Month celebrates the achievements of African Americans in the arts, civil rights, education, entertainment, government, history, law, literature, medicine, military, music, politics, science, sports, and other endeavors. And whereas we at the City of Salem proudly commend the many achievements, successes, and contributions of African Americans whose roots begin with a foundation of incredible strength, resilience, creativity, and unity. And now, therefore, in recognition of African Americans past and present in our community, I, Chris Hoy, Mayor of the City of Salem, do hereby proclaim the month of February 2024 as Black History Month in the City of Salem, and encourage all residents to join in learning about and celebrating the contributions African Americans have made to our country, our state, and to our community, dated this 22nd day of January 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to all the city councilors. Thank you for this, and on behalf of our president, President Hampton, and executive board, we do accept this proclamation. And as I said last year, and I'll say again, being a person of color and African American, in the skin that I am in and the role that I play, I just believe that we are all in this together. And so I will continue to say that message because I believe that solidarity wins. Whether we say it or not, we are in this together. So thank you.
Yes. Okay. We are going to go back on the agenda one item. The city manager has one more thing he wants to share.
One more thing.
One more thing.
I was talking about Colombo earlier today, and my one more thing is Robert Chandler coming to the microphone to introduce Juliana Douglas, our new climate action program. Juliana. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Good evening, City Council. My name is Robert Chandler. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works here, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you our Climate Action Plan Manager, Juliana Douglas, who comes to us from Frisco, Texas, and I've asked her to introduce herself. So, there you go.
Good evening, and thank you, Mayor and Council and City Manager. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. My name is Juliana Douglas, and I am the Climate Action Plan Manager for City of Salem. I will be here to answer any questions that you may have later in this meeting on the annual Climate Action Plan report from 2023. However, I would like to give credit for the many accomplishments in 2023 to Heather Douglas. She has done a fantastic job as Climate Action Plan Manager prior to my arrival. With more information available in the report, I'd like to highlight a couple things from last year. One of them was Transportation and Land Use number 40, which the City Council passed an ordinance eliminating parking minimums. Energy number 4, which was the 2021 greenhouse gas inventory report, which was completed in February of last year, and energy number 7, which was hiring a full-time climate action plan manager. Personal thanks on that one. I was asked to provide a brief introduction of myself to council. So I earned my bachelor's from University of Oregon in environmental studies and got 2 masters. My first is in public administration from the College of Charleston, where I did my thesis on environmental justice of natural resource extraction in Native American communities. My second master's is from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health in public health. And while I was there, I was a Bloomberg American Health Initiative Fellow in the Environmental Challenges cohort. My work there was around cultivating and communicating health behavior change. In addition to my education, I have 2 years experience in data analyst and research assistant and 8 years experience in municipal sustainability. Most of that has been in the realm of reducing wasted food and grant writing. I was also instrumental in creating the sustainability division at my previous city of Frisco, Texas. And among the many exciting things that this position has to offer, I'm really excited about the work in spanning multiple disciplines and making a difference now and for future generations. For 2024, there are 12 strategies from the Climate Action Plan that we'll be focusing on. For transportation and land use, phase one of the transportation system plan is underway. Additionally, the City of Salem will be working to reduce trip reduction, and we'll be working on reporting that better as well. And as you might have known from the Urban Development Group, they are working to change city-controlled parking. And for reducing energy emissions, that one we have 6 strategies on, so to not bore you, just briefly we'll be working on a public-facing dashboard for key metrics, and we'll be continuing to plan for renewable-based microgrids throughout Salem, and that being possibly coupled with community-wide clean energy programs. There are additional efforts that we'll be making on the climate action plan, but I didn't want to say every single one of them. So again, thank you so much. I'm excited for the work that we have ahead, and it's my pleasure to be here as a member of the Salem team.
Juliana, we are so excited to have you. You've already made your presence felt here to Climate Action Committee, and we really appreciate your expertise. Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and welcome to Salem. Congratulations. Your credentials are impressive, so I'm very happy to see you here. When we passed the Climate Action Plan, we had folks ask, what can a city realistically do to make a difference anyway? What do you say to those folks who are skeptical about a city adopting a climate action plan?
Well, I think that it's not just the city. You made a community-wide climate action plan. So I would say that it's an ability for them to live more sustainably and more connected with their community. And so if they are worried about if the city can do it, we'd love their help.
Thank you. All right. Welcome. We are now on to presentations. So we are really lucky to have the superintendent of the Salem-Keizer Public Schools, Superintendent Andrea Castaneda, here to be presenting to us tonight. She is going to talk to us about some ongoing and upcoming financial challenges. So Superintendent, if you would just mind joining us at the podium there and hit that button so the green light comes on and you are all set. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I wish I had not worn heels tonight. I can see the
microphones
ergonomic
are pretty
issues.
good at picking up, so you should be able to. Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to be with you. I'll be brief, but also available. You guys all know how to reach me if you have questions. I am going to give you guys a quick tour through the financial situation that our school district faces. I do want to thank all of the council members and the mayor and the city manager for the time you've already given me in one-on-one settings as we've talked through some of these issues. The school district's financial challenges are not in their kind of structure dramatically different than what the city faces. Mayor, we've had an opportunity to co-lament, and I would also say co-conspire on systemic changes, which is really what is required at this point, systemic change. In the meantime, we do have to address the issues that we face. We cannot forestall, nor can we expect a solution to magically appear. So let me briefly talk to you about what we've done and what will come next. So this slide up here you see reflects what we were forecasting in July. And as a school district, I'm not going to take you through all the details. I will cut to the chase and tell you that the part that should replace the joy that one feels with a clean audit with fear one feels about the future is that gap between the orange and the blue lines. That is the expense revenue gap we were forecasting as a school district in our single largest fund. And the way that we have largely been addressing that over the past 2 years and in our forecast is that we draw on our ending fund balance, basically our savings account, year over year to close that gap. But that is not a sustainable solution, and we are at the end of the sustainability, in fact, of that as an option. So since July 1st, the things we've done, not entirely different than the actions the city's taken, in fact. First, starting on the 1st of July, across-the-board austerity plan, hiring freeze, managing all elective expenses, doing everything we can to live into a new culture of thrift, I would say. In order for that to pay benefits, we will have to live that for years, not just months. Second thing we did was a first round of $31 million in reductions and in adjustments. That $31 million included some things you may have heard about on the news, but I'll keep it brief and say it included about 10% reduction in district administrators. That's the largest that we've done in a decade. It included salary freezes for our highest paid employees, and it included about 50 FTE that we have either permanently ended the position or will at the end of the year some of whom are going to need to find new roles in our system or new roles elsewhere. In short, we've started to initiate the reduction in force that's going to be necessary, but we have only just begun. The third and most important thing that I think we've done in the last month is we have just pounded all the positive error out of our budget. Usually positive error is a good thing in a budget because it means that you save a little more at the end of every month, the end of every year. Positive error is a risk for us now because any form of error could result in us accidentally reducing more staff than we need to. So what you'll see here, and the numbers matter, I think, less than the shape, which you can focus on, is the net results of the $31 million in reductions, the initiating the reduction in force, and resetting all of our forecast assumptions. And you can see that things are looking better. You can see that, first of all, that black line isn't crashing. That's our ending fund balance. But more important, what you can see is that we're starting to close the gap between our expenses and our revenue. So this is a mixture of good and hard news. What I want to leave you with is just kind of a foreshadowing of a couple of things that are going to happen next, as I expect that you all will read and hear about them in the coming days, weeks, and months. First, this forecast that says January 2024, that reflects our previous offers to our two associations. 96% of our employees are working under lapsed contracts, and we are in mediation with both. When we reset those offers, we're going to see that expense revenue line pop open again. In other words, we're going to project new, higher expenses on personnel. We're going to have a bigger gap, and that means we're going to have a bigger gap to fill. So, in the coming weeks, I expect you'll hear about that. The second thing you're going to hear about is that of this revenue source, our single largest, 90% of it is people. That means that when you're facing something in the order of a 40 or 50 or $60 million gap, and 90% of what you're spending is on people, that is the only place you have to go to close the gap. So I do believe that our early statements remain true. We will be looking at hundreds fewer employees working for us on July 1st than are working for us right now. And this is a devastating thing to have to imagine. These cuts are going to be extremely difficult for our schools. And at the end of this work, which I consider to be the middle chapter, what is urgently necessary is the same thing that is necessary for the city. It is policy reform. Policy reform is what will allow us to rebound, not just stagger through our reduction. So that is, of course, our priority, in addition to managing this as humanely, as strategically, and as transparently as we can. And so with that, I will close. I think I had 10 minutes. I might have nailed it right. It's right in the ballpark.
I think you nailed it, Superintendent. Thank you for that very somber update. It's I'm having a really unfortunate deja vu from our budget meeting a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
It's almost, you could just kind of layer those conversations over the conversations we were having. I would like to say, before we get to any questions from counselors, I had the opportunity today to attend a civics in action course. It's through the Online Edge program. The teacher was Molly McGregor. And so it was a class of, I think, 11th and 12th graders. And it was great talking to them about a lot of the issues happening in Salem. So that was a new experience. I visited classrooms many times in the past, but I'd never done the online classroom, and that was a unique experience today. And I know some of my colleagues are also going to be attending that class in the near future. So I just wanted to thank you and Molly McGregor for inviting us to participate in that. And that, along with this conversation, I think are really important as we navigate our way through this, and the conversations that you and I have had trying to figure out how to make a systemic change so we can get out of this situation. So
we do have a number of pretty spectacular young people who have thoughts about how you all and we do our jobs. Should you wish to be connected with them, we can make that happen.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any questions for the superintendent? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you so much for being here, Superintendent. I first want to start by commending you for your transparency. When times are good, the people don't need to hear from you as much. When times are bad, that's when they need to hear from you as the most. And I see you everywhere, on social media, in person, talking to citizen groups and coming to council. So I commend you for that, because these are painful decisions, but the only way to make those cuts is in broad daylight. So I commend you for your transparency and encourage you to do so. I am wondering whether and how the cuts will impact our reduced lunch and free lunch, our free meal programs. We have so many children in poverty. And without Salem-Keizer Public Schools, these kids would go hungry. How might these cuts impact our food program for the kids?
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad you raised that, because schools do far more than just educate. And even in the last inclement weather, each day that we had to suspend school was another day we were worrying jointly about students who were not being fed and families who were losing wages, which pushed them even further from their next meal. So fortunately, I don't foresee any change in our meal service program because it's federally subsidized. And as long as we manage it carefully and appropriately, our students will continue to eat for free.
Thank you. Councilor Stapleton.
Thank you so much, and thank you for meeting with us individually and for coming down here today. I was really, really pleased that the mayor got this on the agenda, because I feel like there's such a connection between City Council and the school board and what we're doing jointly together within our communities. What happens in one area really highly impacts the other. And so this kind of conversation and cross-collaboration is really critical, I think. I will say I have a 7th and a 9th grader, and to look forward to years of cuts coming on the heels of years of COVID. I personally, as a parent, I think I'm allowed to say this. I am just so angry. And I get really emotional about this. So I'm sorry for that, but just to see how everything kind of feels like it's coming apart at the seams, not only here at the city, but also now in the schools. And this was predictable, and we all knew it was coming, and we all chose to do nothing until we're here. And so I personally, I'm just really frustrated. My question that I have for you is about 504 programs, and maybe you could speak to that. I know that with these cuts it's interesting to hear the cuts that we're having, the increase in wage, but also the demands for smaller class sizes, which for me all kind of does not mesh together. But how are we going to protect kids on 504s, and how does that all work? Is that federally funded, or do we receive funds from the feds for those types of programs?
Well, there was so much in your comments.
I'm so sorry.
No, first I'm going to say, I share your sense of indignation. And I believe that we are being given an opportunity as a school district to raise this issue in a way that is fair-handed, takes responsibility for the parts that are ours, and makes it clear that Portland and Salem-Keizer are the leading edge of what is going to happen to district after district. This is actually not a Salem-Keizer issue. This is an opportunity for Salem-Keizer to tell a story about what will happen to Oregonians in the coming, I would say, 6 to 18 months. And it's happening all up the I-5 corridor. So we step into that responsibility with a sense of eagerness and hope, in addition to a little bit of audacity that we have a job to do on behalf of your children who have had some rough years and all of our children who have had some rough years. On the issue of the 504 specifically, it's not exactly federally funded. There's a lot of blended funding that supports it. I would raise up a number of special student populations who are really demand additional attention and shelter during a difficult budget cycle. And so when we come out and we say, we can have anything, we cannot have everything. These are the trade-offs we're going to be talking about. You're right, the math on class size reduction in the face of a reduction in workforce, mutually incompatible. Actually mathematically impossible to do both. And so we have to make the smartest, hardest cuts we can that recognize that there are some students who really need additional support, and the cuts cannot start with them, nor can they go deepest on them.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? I really appreciate you coming down and having this conversation. I think it's, so critical as we move this forward and try to come up with a solution for everybody. So thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to thank all of you, but especially the mayor, for the help in figuring out how we partner in a common policy issue as a capital city, how we fight for additional complementary funding sources, and how we see the ways in which it's all an ecosystem, and the kids go to our schools, but they play in your parks. So we can do this all together. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. All right, we are on now to public comment. We have signed up, let's see, Beth Schmidt, if you would come forward. Introduce yourself for the record with either your address or your ward. Reminder, you have 3 minutes. The yellow light will flash when you have 1 minute left. Oops, that turned off. There you go.
Good evening, Mayor Hoy, council members, and Mr. Staley. My name is Beth Schmidt. I am the Salem-Keizer Safe Routes to School Program Coordinator. I'm here today to just speak in support of item number 6A for safe and reliable and efficient infrastructure. I want to take a minute to just talk about briefly pedestrian safety, and the importance of pedestrian safety education for safe routes to school. You know that that's my priority, but for a quick minute, I want to talk about my coworker, Denise Van Dyke.
I'm sorry, could you pull the microphone just a little bit closer?
I'm not as tall.
Thank you. There you go.
Superintendent. I'm much shorter.
Perfect. Thank you.
Many of you know that I work for the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, and my partner is Salem-Keizer Public Schools. On December 19th, 2022, I was only in the job for 2 months, and my coworker Denise Van Dyke had gone outside to move her car. She was crossing the street on State Street. She had the pedestrian walk, and she was hit. And I was one of the staff members who went down on the street and saw the aftermath with my coworkers. And it was traumatic and impacted me as a Safe Routes to School coordinator. It will forever. And so I continued to teach pedestrian safety education to students. And Denise is going to be the source of my inspiration and motivation for many years. She had the walk. She was within her rights, right? She had the right of way. But I'd like to take the time, because those of us at the COG and in the Metropolitan Planning Organization, SCATS, want to say thank you for putting the lead pedestrian interval there. And it's already blinking at me.
It's all right.
And that means a lot to us because we walk those streets. And I basically cross the street just trying to look at every driver who's gonna maybe peg me, And sadly, another pedestrian was just killed 3 blocks from where Denise was killed. So I'm gonna continue to talk about pedestrian safety education, and we want to thank you for helping improve infrastructure so that we can help students with Salem-Keizer Public Schools have better accessibility to walk and roll to school. So every day I continue to go talk to kids. I don't tell them about Denise because I don't want to make them scared. I want to empower them to feel that they can be independent and they can choose how to get up and walk to school or ride their bike or ride their skateboard. I want them to have the choice, the freedom of choice to go and live in our community. But right now, as adults, we hold the power to fix the infrastructure and educate our students. And this is my greatest priority. I will continue to engage with the community and have walking buses, and then we'll just keep teaching them, and you guys will keep getting money and fixing the roads, and I'm here for that. All the streets, the sidewalks, I'm
Thank
here
you,
for
Beth.
it. You're welcome.
And I thank you for acknowledging Denise. I worked with her closely as our staff person in the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance, and she's, yeah, it was a tragedy, and I'm sorry that you had to experience that, and for all the staff, it's, yeah.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that our public works engineers have been working on trying to make downtown safer with those lead walk times where the walk light turn, you get basically the pedestrians get a head start at a lot of those intersections. And I know Councilor Stapleton and Councilor Nishioka have some plans on some more improvements. So I look forward to joining that conversation in the near future.
And I'm happy to do whatever you need in my support. We're here for that. And just, inviting people who want to come visit Salem, that we can make it a safe place for everyone. And with all this that we're doing, I think it's a great opportunity to talk about it and just address it. And I'm happy to be a part of the conversation.
Thank you. And I think I just have to say out loud while we have the microphone, people need to take responsibility when they're driving and not drive distracted, put the darn phone down. It's not appropriate to be using that while you're driving, and the papers and all the things, and just pay attention. Pay attention.
Yeah, I agree. Kids say the darndest things, right? All the kids, when they say things, I try to tell them about distracted driving and the things they say, but kids see everything. Kids never miss a beat.
Yeah.
And they know, and now's the time to teach them.
That's right.
So we have an opportunity, so let's do it. We'll walk to school together.
Yes.
And we'll have a great time, and we'll just keep doing what we got to do. So here's to no more pedestrian and bicyclist fatalities, okay?
Amen. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Online, we have Steve Anderson.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Steve Anderson, Ward 8. This summer, I had a chance to talk with City Manager at his office regarding some of the changes to the city rules. I want to thank him for his time and the efforts he made to carry some of those ideas forward. It's good to see several of those in place now in this proposal on Agenda 5.B. But there was one item that did not get surfaced, and I just wanted to raise that with you tonight. It has to do with Rule 16 on public hearings, where the applicant gets 15 minutes to speak and present their case, and neighborhood associations get 5. It seems like neighborhood associations are the venue for Goal 1 and the chance to share community interests. And under the idea of fairness, it seems like both parties should have the time to present their case. The applicant still gets 5 minutes of rebuttal, but I would ask City Council to consider tonight looking at that, and under the issue of allowing the community, under the neighborhood associations, to have the same amount of time, the 15 minutes there under public hearing on Rule 16, as the applicant does. That way, there's a little more fairness in the discussion. The applicant still gets the final word, but it allows, under the Goal 1 provisions of the land use issues, the community to speak through their neighborhood associations. Other than that, I think the body of what was done covered a lot of the issues in terms of community involvement, engagement, and thank the team that brought that forward for their efforts. And that's all I have tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. I appreciate your comments. Without objection, I'm going to call forward the item 8 folks who have signed up. We just have 2 people since we had a short group from item 2. So with that, I will call up Evelyn Bross. Hit that green button for me. Somebody could, if staff could help her. There we go. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name's Evelyn Bross. I'm here to talk to you about pedestrians being hit by vehicles. I have hands-on experience. I have been hit several times when I lived in Portland, Oregon. I had a walk sign. I was crossing the street, and a car came it was going to take a right turn on red. I had the walk sign. The car wasn't even looking. It looked to the left. I was to the right. Pedestrian hit me, or the driver hit me, my right leg. I land on the hood. I see stars. I screamed bloody murder. She kept driving. Finally, she stopped. And for 2 years, I had pain in my leg. Another time, I was crossing the street, I had a walk sign, and I was in the middle of the crosswalk. A 3/4 ton pickup makes a left turn on green, and I'm right there in the middle. My hands are on the hood. I'm like this far from my stomach hitting the truck front end. I screamed bloody murder, and he stopped just a nick of time before he hit me head on with a 3/4 ton pickup. I complained to the city. I told the city, you need the traffic lights to be all red for the pedestrians cross. That way the drivers see the pedestrians crossing the street before it turns green. And they wanted to do a research. So they did surveillance, and while they were watching, people were watching up one street, I was crossing the street, I had the walk sign. While I was crossing the street, here's a semi going the other way. I'm crossing this way, semi's coming this way, and they had the red light. I had the walk sign. Semi goes, almost hits me. That's when they said, okay, we'll change it. And that's when the walk signs all turned walk, and all the traffic signs turned to red. And that's what needs to be done, because I have experienced this in Portland, and it's not going to be any different living in Salem or anywhere else. And it's much safer to just change it to all walk signs and rest are red than to trying to deal with neglecting an issue, and then you have lawsuits coming. And I think changing the signs this way is much safer and less expensive for you.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions, and also I want to let you know that NBA trailblazer got killed by a hit and run in Portland back in 21. And if you didn't know that, I got his name right here, and he was a freelancer. And his name is Anthony Lorenzo Tolliver, Tolliver. Anyway, he got killed. He was a trailblazer player, and he got killed in Portland by hit and run. And that was in 21. So this is not just residents, but you don't have to be famous to be killed for a change.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I
Thank you.
appreciate your comments. Richard Reigard.
This one?
Yeah, it's good to go. Nope, you turned it off. There you go.
Richard Regard, you know why I'm here. I've already told you numerous times, and now why you couldn't help me. I went to OSH again, tried to get records, put in a release. It disappeared. You got an issue there. Put in another one. They said come back Friday. Then they said they didn't track what I did. They track everything. They're covering it up. I went to Oregon State Bar, asked for something. Been there 4 times after this incident that they said they trespassed me for because they didn't want me to talk there like I'm doing here. Asked for an investigation of everything and all the files. They gave me the 6 motions I sent them, the complaining that I showed them that I wasn't 370, and they injected me with drugs anyways. Okay, this was in your time as president when I've been here 4 times now, and you said you couldn't help me. I see all you people have legal stuff and know how to do it, and you know everybody, and these are your sections of the city. Now, if you can't help what they did to me, in case they shut the video off, do what they want, put me in the damn cell in your town and inject me with drugs, if you can't save somebody and fix that, what are you even doing in office? Because I'm disappointed. Very disappointed that all you people will not help me when you know what they did and your regions are covering it up. My city is corrupt, and now you're covering it up, and that is uncool. Think about it. What if it was one of your kids that got thrown in a cage and stand checked with drugs? No video, no audio, no nothing. Followed all the motions, asked all you people to help, and nobody shows up. They say they didn't get nothing. You know? Where is this liberty and justice you sit there and put your hand on? Because I didn't get any of it, and I still haven't. And I'm very, very disappointed with your city. What do you got to say? Anybody? Anybody got a comment? You want to say what I said ain't true?
Mr. Regard, I think I explained to you before that this isn't
No,
the
what
ci-
I'm saying is this is your city.
It
They're
is.
covering it up.
No, that's not
Yes,
true.
they're not doing their jobs, and there's people in here that are hooked to them departments.
Okay.
So what I have to say is, why are you helping them?
I wish I could
And
help
not
you.
me.
I really, really do wish I could help
Because
you.
you know what they did. I filed 4 lawsuits against the whole place, and you still let them stay at the bar. I filed 6 motions, 2 habeas corpuses, and a written mandamus, and you said I was 370 and let them inject me. There was no investigation on the nurse. You guys did nothing. It's all cover up in Salem. County's corrupt. Why don't you guys do something? Or get out of office.
Thank you.
Did you record that for everybody?
Councilor Stapleton, the consent calendar.
I move approval of the consent calendar with the exception of item 3.3A, pulled by Councilor Gwynn.
I'll second that.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Nishioka. Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. We have item 3.1A, the January 8th, 2024 draft city council minutes. Item 3.2A, the transfer of appropriations within the city's fiscal year 2024 budget to fund a water leak repair at City Hall and the lease of 2 fire apparatus. We also have item 3.3B, a request to create a mid-year project and submit an Energy Trust of Oregon incentive application for lighting upgrades in the process support facility at Willow Lake Water Pollution Control Facility. Item 3.3C, application for project funding under the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Grant Program issued by the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Item 3.3D, the recommended policy statements and priorities as revised to guide Salem's federal and state agenda and Salem's response to proposed legislation during the 2024 Oregon legislative session. Item 3.3E, procurement for the city manager's performance evaluation process. And finally, item 3.3F, setting a public hearing for the assessment of project costs for the conversion of the private Sleepy Hollow Phase 1 water system to the city's public water system. And that concludes the consent calendar.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there further discussion? Councilor Hoy?
Did I hear my name associated with a poll?
No, I don't think
Oh,
so. I
I
think it was
thought- I
Councilor
thought-
Gwynn.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
You're welcome. Any other discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips absent. Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordyke.
Aye.
Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. All right, we are on to public hearings. We have an annexation case, and I believe we have Lisa Anderson-Ogilvy joining us to do that presentation.
Salem City Council will now conduct a public hearing to consider a petitioner-initiated annexation of territory located at 4370 Fisher Road Northeast. The criteria applicable to the decision is SRC 260.010G 1A, B, C, and D. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed toward the applicable criteria or other criteria which the person believes to apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue prior to the close of the public hearing in person or in writing, or failure to provide statements or evidence with sufficient specificity to provide the parties and the City Council an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. A similar failure to raise constitutional issues relating to proposed conditions of approval precludes an action for damages in circuit court. The hearing will begin with staff presentation. The applicant is limited to 10 minutes. The applicable neighborhood association is limited to 5 minutes. Other interested parties are limited to 3 minutes, and the applicant may have up to 5 minutes rebuttal testimony limited to issues raised during the public testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll note that nobody signed up for public comment. I am going to just briefly ask Councilor Stapleton to take over, and I'll be right back.
Good evening, Lisa Anderson-Ogilvy, your planning administrator. I'm here to present this annexation case for property at 4370 Fisher Road Northeast. I would like to request that the staff report, its attachments, and this presentation be entered into the official record. And the subject property is located in Northeast Salem, north of Silverton. It's on Fisher Road, just south of Ward Drive, northeast. And there's a little red star there. You can see it's way up north. And zooming in here, you can see an aerial taken from mid-2023 of the subject property outlined in red. It's slightly less than an acre in size. In this photo, you can see construction is happening on the property. The property is directly north of Fisher Road Park, as you can see below. The comprehensive plan designation for the property is mixed use, which is shown on the map in pink. And then in the vicinity, we have public open space and parks shown in green for the park just to the south, and multifamily is shown in orange. In 2022, the property owners requested access to city services. In order to receive those services, they needed to apply for annexation to the city. They did submit that application and services were provided at that time. They built a 26-unit multifamily development in Marion County. It is complete and occupied. They are requesting, and staff is recommending, mixed-use 3 zoning for the subject property. Multifamily is permitted use in that zone, and the development meets the density and development standards of the zone. This is a Google Street View image of the property in the summertime. It looks nice and green there. When the property was almost complete, you can see that they have 2 buildings. They did sidewalks and street trees. And then I went out on Friday, not quite as green and pretty in this picture on Friday, but I just went out to take a look, and obviously, like I said, it is complete and the units are now occupied. In order to approve an annexation, the council needs to find that it meets the approval criteria. First is that it's exempt from voter approval. That requires the property owners to sign an annexation petition, and they have done that. You have to determine it's an orderly boundary, as I showed on the map. It's touching city limits and can be served by city services, which is one of the other criteria. You have to decide if you want to withdraw it from a district. It's in Marion County Fire District and it's in a sewer district. The city will be providing those services, so it should be withdrawn from the district. And then if it's in the public interest, and as I mentioned, they receive city services contingent on this annexation. Besides testimony from city departments, we did not receive any public testimony for this application. And staff is recommending that you approve the annexation and apply mixed-use 3 zoning, withdraw it from Marion County Fire District and the East Salem Sewer and Drainage District, and forward to first reading. That concludes my presentation. I believe the applicant is here, maybe to answer questions if the council has any.
Okay, yeah, nobody signed up for public comment, so are there any questions? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Councilor Gonzalez, do you have a motion?
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to move staff recommendation to approve the annexation of the territory located at 4370 Fisher Road, Northeast. Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Gonzalez, second by Stapleton. Do we need the rest of the verbiage, or are we good? The attorney says we're good. Any further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips absent. Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordike.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. All right, we are now on to item 5A, Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Salem, Willamette University, and the Salem Baseball Club LLC to participate in good faith negotiations on renovation of the Willamette Baseball Stadium and softball stadiums and make available to the LLC as noted. I don't know who's doing that presentation. Mr. Archer.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you, Mayor and Council Member Scott Archer, Deputy City Manager for Community Services. And this item is a proposed Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Salem, Willamette University, and the Salem Baseball Club. And if you don't know what that is yet, I will explain that to you. If it's approved, the MOU will memorialize the parties' intention to work collaboratively towards renovation of the Willamette Baseball Stadium and Softball Stadium, and to make those available for use for a potential summer league baseball team comprised of collegiate players. I want to acknowledge that we have in our audience tonight some representatives from the parties, Luke Emanuel from the Salem Baseball Club, Rob Passage from Willamette University, and then Laura Tiffin from Salem-Keizer School District. The school district is not a formal party to the agreement, however, they are supportive. I think it's Salem-Keizer School District night here. They are supportive of this MOU and just generally of this partnership, and they have interest in improvements to the baseball and softball stadiums just for the general good of the community, for community use, as well as for potential school district use. As you might know, Mayor and Council, the baseball stadium that Willamette University owns and uses is adjacent to the city-owned Bush's Pasture Park. You might say it's surrounded by our park. Technically, it is mostly not in our park. A portion of that stadium lies within the park, and that is subject to an easement agreement that we have with the university that goes back to 1982. So a long-standing arrangement there. The MOU references Willamette's long-term use and lease of the softball stadium at Tokyo International University of America. We don't have really much to do with that, but it's all kind of incorporated this general partnership of improving some stadium and some ball fields within the community. So the Salem Baseball Club is an organization that intends to form a new summer collegiate baseball team to play in what is called the West Coast League. This league encompasses Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, and Alberta, Canada. It showcases professional prospects from major collegiate conferences around the nation. You might say it's sort of like a minor league baseball team. It technically is not, I think, but it kind of is, and it is a very high level baseball. It is something that I think, a lot of this league has a lot of fan support. It's something that the community can get out and get behind a team that plays in this league. The parties to the MOU have an interest in supporting improvements to the baseball stadium. Salem Baseball and Willamette envision renovations and improvements to the stadium for the benefit of their uses as well as for the benefit of the Salem community. Those improvements mainly include installation of sports lighting, a synthetic turf playing surface, and accessibility improvements. These are all good things for overall use and play. The renovation and use of the stadium will require a little bit more expansion of our easement into Bush's Pasture Park, which is really our big connecting point. The city's interest here really is supporting the improvements at the stadium for use by the university, the baseball club for this future team, and just generally the community for recreational and athletic uses. We do have a shortage of ball fields, and all-weather ball fields particularly are very advantageous, and so this is a great opportunity. We also recognize and support the idea of the benefit and enjoyment to the community by making Salem home to this new baseball team that will play in a premier summer baseball league. So it will be fun for Salem if they were to make Salem its home. The city, it is not anticipated that we would provide any financial support, so that is important for you to know, Mayor and Council, that we are not proposing financial support. Rather, our contribution really will be in just some staff time that we're spending to help with this partnership, and again, the additional easement that we would need to provide in the park if this were to go forward. And again, the project also includes the renovation or some improvements to the softball stadium at Tokyo International University. So another community benefit. The MOU is not legally binding. This really is a first step. It's a formal sign of cooperation towards a more concrete legal agreement. It runs through, if approved, it would go through October 31st of this year. It could be extended if we needed more time, but really the idea is to take the next 9.5 or so months and work together with the parties to have a more concrete agreement that that really formalizes all of what I've just described, and we hopefully can get to that place and have an agreement that would be reached. If we were to go forward, of course, the city would require all of the typical compliance with land use requirements, conditions. There are some interested neighbors and neighborhood associations. Mr. Emanuel and Mr. Passage, I just had a conversation right before this meeting, informed me that they've got some additional meetings lined up with neighborhood associations in the next, I think, month or so. They've already met and have begun some of the process of working with the neighborhood directly around the park particularly, but they're going to continue that effort. So we are recommending your approval of this MOU, and I'd be happy to answer questions, but I also want to, again, acknowledge that the other two parties are here, and they could also help answer questions and/or just generally provide you more information that you might want. So, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Archer. I think this is possibly the single largest source of items on my calendar since I've been mayor. I think I've had more meetings talking about this subject than anything else, and it's really exciting to kind of get it to this place. So hopefully this is kind of our next launching off point. So happy to have this here. So does anybody have any questions? Councilor Nishioka. I anticipated your hand. Look at that.
You did. I just want to say thank you again to Luke Emanuel. I think it was almost 2 years ago that we first met, when he has been working on this idea for such a long time, and he has been incredibly tenacious and kind, and answers all the questions when he's meeting with people, and I just want to thank him for all that hard work, and I'm glad that the partners are coming together and that this is going to happen, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I do think it'll be a great asset for our community, for the school district, for the university, for the city, for everybody, so yeah. Other Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you so much. I too met with Luke. Great to see you tonight. I'm in full support also. This project checks a lot of boxes for me. For one, increasing local youth sports opportunities is huge. Having opportunities for kids to play locally is incredibly important for them to build life skills across demographic lines, across socioeconomic lines. There's all kinds of advantages to teaching kids team sports in particular. The other boxes it checks is accessibility. Synthetic turf is safe for all levels of play, including Special Olympics, youth, high school, college, and adult recreation. The other box it checks for me has to do with reducing maintenance and conserving water. There's a sustainability advantage from having synthetic turf, as it reduces environmental pollution from gas-powered equipment and fertilizers. Not to mention the melodic noise we all hear from those gigantic riding lawnmowers that we see everywhere. In addition, I love the idea of bringing more collegiate level sports here. That's more tourism dollars to Salem. That's more support for our local economy and our local businesses. So I see this as a win on several levels. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. It sounds like all those meetings are going to be paying off soon. So I'm happy to provide support for this.
Thank you, Councilor. I hope so. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Hoy.
Just a point of interest. I think it's been a couple of years since we met too, and you have worked very hard. What does this moment feel like for you to sort of make progress?
Sorry, Mr. Emanuel, I can't have you speaking from the audience because the people on TV can't hear you, but if you'd like to step up to the podium and turn on the microphone, you're welcome to do that.
Give us a bit about your passion project.
Thank you for the question.
Please introduce yourself.
Luke Emanuel, Salem Baseball Club. This has been really started in 2017, and there's been some ups and downs, but through meeting with most of you, it's been very supportive. Through meeting with local business leaders, meeting with local legislators, everyone's on board in the sense that this is improving the livability of Salem, and it does so on so many levels. Again, I appreciate your support, and again, happy to take on other questions. I know that we have far more to go, but I have such great partners in all of this, and we're going to make it happen. And the goal is 2025 to really have us out in front and playing. So,
do we have a team name yet?
I will take suggestions, please. Yes, not yet.
That's been a source of many of our meetings, it's just the team name. So, well, thank you so much, and we're really excited about this. So
right.
thank you for being here, and thank you
Thank
to
you.
the school district and to Willamette for being here as well. Thank you. All right, any further discussion? Councilor Varney.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. Who utilizes the softball stadium? I'm just curious.
Oh, Mr. Emmanuel is coming
Yeah.
back. Or I know that, yeah. Yep. Hit that green button for me. Introduce yourself for the record, please. Thank you.
I was hoping I wouldn't have to do this, but I love the opportunity to answer the question. Rob Passage, Director of Athletics at Willamette University. Currently, right now, it's our softball program and then other groups that may want to use it. The challenge is, in weather like this, there's not a lot of people that actually get to use it. So our softball team right now uses our soccer and lacrosse field more than anything else. Our hope is, and we've had conversations again with a lot of folks and with Laura at the Salem-Keizer, is that our team will be able to do it. We'll be able to use it. That the local high schools will be able to use it. The nice thing about softball, without a mound, you can use some youth. There's a lot of youth sport opportunities also that come with that. But I think right now it's just us. I think the sky's the limit as we move forward.
Is it used during the summer as well?
It's used during the summer sometimes for camps, but that's a real opportunity here. We've actually had also conversations about, when we bring summer tournaments and different things, it's another field that we know is going to be playable during the summer. So yeah, right now, not a lot. But again, I think it has an opportunity for both spaces. Obviously with Luke's team, the baseball stadium will be used a lot in the summer. I think softball can be used a lot as well, because there's a lot of different uses for it, not just softball. So, thank you. All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilor Nishioka, do you have a motion?
Thank you. Yes, I move to authorize the city manager to execute the Memorandum of Understanding.
Second.
Motion by Nishioka, second by Hoy. Councilor, anything further?
I don't think we need to add anything else. I think we all are pretty happy about it.
That's a good answer. Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Phillips, absent. Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordike.
Aye.
Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. Awesome. All right. Item 5B, City Council Rule Committee Report. And I see that our attorney has stepped away from the desk and up to the podium. So, Mr. Atchison, hit that button. There you go.
Dan Atchison, City Attorney. I have a presentation that I can present to you with the PowerPoint, or we can go with questions. I understand that Councilor Stapleton might have an alternate motion that would separate out the issue of moving forward with council call-ups from adoption of the rules. What is your pleasure?
I would like, just so the public understands the issue, I would like you to go through the PowerPoint briefly,
Certainly.
please.
Give me a moment.
Was that your PowerPoint? That was not? No. And, was it one of them that already got?
Did you load it? Well, we might have a problem showing you the PowerPoint because it wasn't loaded onto the computer.
Oh, well, we can, I think I'll imagine it.
My apologies
Perhaps some
for that.
interpretive dance would be helpful.
Not in your wildest dreams. And they would be wild.
Well,
let me
give
just,
it your best shot.
Let me
Whatever
go
you got.
through the items as I have them in my written form. You have copies of the presentation before you.
Councilors,
But
you have it here.
The Rules Committee met 4 times over 2023 to review the rules. I suggested a number of technical updates, and the committee members had some ideas for other rule changes. Most of the changes are technical in nature. They're removing gendered language such as he and him to chair instead of chairman, that sort of thing. Other rules were required to be changed to reflect the hybrid meeting format we use now. There was, over the COVID pandemic, there were state law changes requiring virtual attendance participation in the meetings. These rules reflect those changes. There are updates to conform with our publication of the agenda on Wednesdays. Previously, we published the agenda on Thursdays, just a few rule changes there to match that reality. We changed the default for work sessions to the third Monday of the month, as opposed to an hour preceding the council meetings on the first, or the second and fourth Mondays. It's still an option, so if that third Monday doesn't work, we can still schedule it on an alternative day. Another rule change requires in-person attendance for counselors at executive sessions. The rule changes I talked about regarding requiring or allowing the public to attend public meetings remotely doesn't apply to executive sessions. In Oregon, we have an unusual rule. State law requires us to permit the media to attend executive sessions. I had a concern that if folks are attending executive sessions remotely, there'd be the possibility for those meetings to be recorded without our knowledge or listened in by other folks. Some of the rules that caught the attention of the neighborhood associations was a rule change to 16F. That rule essentially doesn't change our current practice. It just states that if you're representing an entity such as an applicant or a neighborhood association and multiple people are signing up to speak on behalf of that entity, you share the amount of time. So as Stephen Anderson spoke to earlier during public comment, during a quasi-judicial land use application hearing, an applicant gets 15 minutes. They might have an architect, a land use consultant, the property owner, and a couple other folks signed up as part of their team. They share that 15 minutes. They don't all get to sign up, use that 15 minutes, and then get another 3. That doesn't prohibit individuals from signing up to speak on their own behalf. So if a neighborhood association gets 5 minutes to speak at a land use hearing, they can use that time. That same representative speaking on their own behalf can sign up separately and speak for another 3 minutes. Rule 19 is an addition of a rule there that basically delegates authority from city council to staff to potentially exclude evidence from the record. So if you recall at some of our quasi-judicial land use hearings, there's usually the hearing opens and closes. Oftentimes we might keep the record open to allow people to submit additional evidence and testimony. At some point you have to cut off the period where people can submit new evidence so you can move to the next stage of rebuttal and then final argument. Occasionally folks will submit written testimony or evidence that contains new evidence during that period where you can't have new evidence. What staff has done over the years is that happens, we'll usually pull that piece, talk to the person who submitted it, ask them to change it, and then include it into the record. There was an objection to that practice last year by one of the neighborhood associations, so just to make it formal, this would be a delegation of authority from council to staff to do that. One of the new proposed rules is Rule 22, Council Communications. The intent of the rule is to avoid public meeting violations through serial emails, which among a quorum of counselors, excuse me. So what can happen is an email might go out to all councils saying, talking about a city business, whether it's an upcoming public hearing, the budget, whatever it might be. If a member of council responds back to that email and hits the reply all button instead of just the reply button, it can create a public meeting violation. So if you start having deliberations or discussions amongst a quorum of council via email, that technically can be a public meeting violation. So it's just some guidance on there on not to do that. And sometimes counselors want to send a communication to all their other counselors. In this rule, we ask that if counselors had that need to send a communication out to other counselors, they send it to the city manager's office, and we'll facilitate getting that out to other counselors, either on a public meeting agenda or otherwise. Rule 24 is also a new rule. It regards social media. The intent of the rule is to ensure compliance with public records law and avoid potential confusion over councilors' personal and political social media accounts versus the city's official accounts. Councilors should avoid commenting on other councilors' social media pages to avoid public meeting violations. There's some case law out there that says that if a quorum of councilors like a post, if you're familiar with Facebook, that could potentially be a public meeting violation. I told the committee, and I'll tell the council, I have no intention to ever regulate your use of likes on Facebook, but please keep that in mind. The city.
What about the I care button? The hug, is that?
I don't care.
Okay.
Councilors should not use the city's logo. So if you want to link to a city post that has the city's logo on it, that's fine, but you shouldn't use that logo on your Facebook page because it gives the appearance that it's an official city social media account. Also, we ask you to include a disclaimer in your social media accounts that says this is your own personal page, it's not the official city page. Essentially, the case law on this is all over the place, but so what we're trying to do is differentiate clearly between your personal and political accounts versus the official city accounts. The more you make it look and sound and feel like an official city account, the more people are going to believe that it's an official city account. And so it's sort of a gray area at what point it becomes a public account owned by the city or supposedly owned by the city versus your own personal stuff. What can happen at that point if it becomes an official city account is that we become responsible for records retention for those posts that get hidden or deleted, the comments on there. There's also some First Amendment concerns. There's a pending case law before for the U.S. Supreme Court where a city manager, not this one, but a city manager on his personal Facebook was commenting about going out to a restaurant and relating it to, it was during COVID, of course. COVID does so many fun things for us. But he was relating to the fact that this restaurant was doing well during COVID and blah, blah, blah. And then a member of the public had some negative comments about it, and the city manager blocked this person from his Facebook account, and the guy then sued the manager in the city. That case is going to the Supreme Court. Hopefully that'll provide some guidance to us going forward on how far we need to get into regulating your and every public official of the city use of social media. And I hope not very far, because it doesn't sound like fun to me. Rule 25 is also a new rule, standards of conduct. The committee came together and proposed different standards. These are more in the nature of guidelines. The intent of the rule is to encourage cohesive and productive council and public confidence in the integrity of the city council and the city. It applies to councilor communications, decision-making, and councilor interactions. Most of the council rules apply to just procedures within the meeting. This applies more generally to your conduct as a councilor. Council call-ups is not included in these rule changes. So if you want to go forward with the changes tonight, you can do that. The council call-up is a separate piece of the recommended motion. The committee looked at the council call-up issue. Councilors and I think the public have been frustrated over the last few years when public hearings on quasi-judicial land use matters come before you, and you have such limited discretion to modify what's being recommended or what's being approved. And in some cases, you're outright prohibited from denying an application. The idea was for those sorts of applications, which usually relate to the needed housing or the housing developments, such as multifamily housing, apartments, residential subdivisions, those sorts of things, where there's not a whole lot you can do to change what otherwise would meet the standards. You wouldn't have the ability to hear those call-ups anymore. One of the concerns I received from council members was, well, I want to make sure that someone's got the ability to hear an appeal. That still happens. If a decision is appealed, it would go to the planning commission or the hearings officer. Not to get too deep into the land use weeds, but the vast majority of the decisions that the city issues are staff level decisions on what it's called a land use permit. It's a particular type of application. In most cases, we issue those after notice and comment to the affected property owners and the neighbors in the area, in the neighborhood association. They have a notice and comment period, then we issue an administrative decision. That decision by law, by the city code as well as state law, may be appealed, and if it is appealed, there is a public hearing. That would be before the hearings officer or the planning commission. So even if you were to eliminate call-ups on these sorts of applications going forward, there still is the ability to appeal it to another person or another body past the planning administrator. If you do want to delay consideration of this, I think the motion that Councilor Stapleton has in mind would move us to the second meeting in March. The reason for that, as I understand it, is there's a Senate bill that's been proposed that may further erode city's local control over the land use process, probably specific to housing. We want to see what else the legislature might be doing, and if that bill comes into law, that may affect your decision on call-ups as well. So the delay won't be detrimental to the process if you want to go forward later on. With that, that's my presentation. I have other information regarding call-ups as well as the rule changes, and I'm happy to entertain questions.
Thank you, Mr. Atchison. Are there any questions? Councilor Nordyke.
What is the enforceability of Rule 25, particularly when it comes to standards of conduct outside of council meetings?
The enforceability of Rule 25 is the same as all the other rules. It's basically, we have the city and the city council has very limited authority to discipline a fellow councilor. In the past, just from past experience, the council has admonished other councilors publicly, but outside of that, there is no enforcement mechanism.
Further questions? Councilor Hoy.
Just one. Will this presentation be available?
I'll send it out to everyone.
Okay, and will it be available to the public?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Further discussion? Or actually, sorry, we're still on questions for staff. Any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you, Mr. Atchison. Councilor Stapleton, do you have a motion?
I do. I move to adopt Resolution 2024-5 to implement changes to the City Council rules and direct staff to bring back potential changes to the City Council call-up process to the March 25th City Council meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Nishioka. Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. Yeah, a lot of work went into this, and I appreciate staff meeting with folks and coming up with this great presentation, kind of walking us all through it. There was some concerns by members of council about our upcoming legislative session and what's going to happen there. And so wanting to see if we can hold off on the call-up decision until a little bit later. And that seemed like a reasonable request. And so we've postponed that till the end of March to allow some time for that legislative session to shake out and see what we got at the end, and then proceed from there.
All right. Is there further discussion? Councilor Nordyke.
So I want to make sure folks take a look and really listen carefully to what the city attorney said. I was hoping that it wouldn't have to be me to help explain in plain English what the actual impact is of a lot of these changes, but the city attorney did a great job doing that. I think on the land use issue specifically, the bottom line is that folks can still be heard. And people can still sign up, and people can still share their concerns. And even when it comes to the admissibility of the rules and the admissibility of the evidence, Salem doesn't make those rules. The Land Use Board of Appeals governs those rules. Those rules are created statewide. So it makes perfect sense to me to delegate decisions on what's admissible and what isn't to the city attorney's office. So while I know there have been some concerns about what these do for land use, I encourage you to review the city attorney's presentation and to actually review the proposed rule changes, because you still have a right to be heard on land use matters. You can still sign up to testify. You can still speak. You can speak in your own capacity. You can speak with your neighborhood association. There's still avenues to do so. So I encourage folks to look at that carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? All right, seeing none, will the recorder please call the roll?
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councillor Hoy.
Aye.
Councillor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Councillor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councillor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councillor Phillips absent. Mayor Hoy.
Aye, motion passes. All right, we are on to item 5C, and we have Colleen Rosillas here from Moss Adams. as well as members of the Kelly family. Multiple members.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Colleen Rosillas from Moss Adams. So we're here with a Revenue Task Force update. On December 11th, I always have this problem because I'm not tall enough. No, I got it. It's good to stretch my skills. On December 11th, you all approved a revenue task force. We've been very busy. In the meantime, you received an update at your last council meeting. The Boards and Commissions Appointments Committee is recommending tonight a 25-member revenue task force with 2 alternates. We'll go through that process, talk about the applicants, and we're hoping for you to approve the slate tonight so we can get to work. So just as a reminder, working together in December, we identified some general parameters for selecting this group. We're hoping for 20 to 30 members with at least 2 alternates so that we could always have folks that represented really the broad diversity, both geographic and demographic across the city. We wanted people who really wanted to dig into this issue. We're also looking for folks who were curious, who wanted to work in a group, and who really cared about the city and the services that the city offers. We also wanted the task force to represent the city in a number of ways. So people who lived in the city, people who were business owners. We asked each of you to appoint from the applicants 2 representatives from each ward, plus mayoral appointees, Chamber of Commerce representative, business owners, both small and large, Salem 350, Latino Business Alliance, as well as a representative from the city employee union. And then we also have an at-large representative non-voting from the Oregon Department of Administrative Services. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jesse to talk a little bit about the applicants.
Thank you so much. Jesse Lenhart, thank you so much for having me here today. So who did we get? We put forth and manifested a lot of these requirements in our task force charter. And we got 157 applicants who were interested in joining. And based on that, we had a few folks drop out once we were able to publish the task force dates. One of the big requirements that we want people to commit to is being present in person. We know a lot of these topics are extremely complicated. They're also very complex. And so we often find that those conversations are facilitated best when they are in person. And so we understand that it's a big commitment. But so that caused a couple of folks to drop out. But again, 157 people, not too shabby. So we also have 1 ex officio member from the Oregon Department of Administrative Services. And this is my first time navigating this. But I can see I wore my heels today. Great. So just wanted to give you all a snapshot view of some of the demographic information. So who did we kind of reach out to in this process? Who submitted their interest? Who did we get as applicants? And so number 1, ward. It's a beautiful pie chart. You have a couple of slices that are a little bit larger than others, but overall pretty equal. When we're looking at ward representation, it's really strong. We didn't have to do any extra outreach on that front. When we're looking at race and ethnicity, in no surprise, the majority of applicants are white. And so we were looking at a couple of other areas. And so this is kind of representative of who submitted applications, which is why we built into the charter, really making sure that we were able to engage and focus on recruiting folks onto the task force that were representatives of those different community associations and different groups. Next, we have age and connection to the community. So also in no surprise, the age of the applicants that we did get skewed a little bit older. So not uncommon, especially when you're looking at a lot of the age groups within Salem. The younger folks here are often students, and so often don't own property or rent or kind of would have jobs after college here. So pretty reflective and again, not totally unexpected. And the majority of folks when asked about their connection to the city said, I live in Salem. So really great turnout. But we have a couple of other folks here that are worth noting, looking at people who also volunteer and people who are business owners. We did get a couple of applicants, who kind of ticked a couple of those boxes and those buckets and those requirements that we really focused on prioritizing in the charter. Then housing and experience, the majority of folks are single-family homeowners. And so really looking at that kind of compared, nobody, it's a little bit hard to read, but nobody indicated that they were temporarily unhoused. And so we had a few folks who rent, but again, as you can see, the majority of folks are single-family homeowners, which makes a lot of sense when we're talking about kind of revenue options for the city. So, then experience, we were looking at the, I'm sorry, I cannot read that. Oh, this really is focused more on kind of their wage and their experience in the city. So lived unsheltered, and this touches on a couple of different areas, right? And so we're looking at wage, we're looking at also their living experience in the city. And so like you can see, kind of their food insecurity, housing, and then also income. So, and again, the majority of folks experienced none of these. So again, kind of why we included in the charter, why we wanted to reach out to a couple of different folks really intentionally. Okay, so based on the 157 people that we had submit applications, we all moved forward with the following lineup of folks to join the task force. So, on the chart, you will see people who are representative of the various wards 1 through 8. Then on the next slide, we have folks, again, who really were intentionally brought on because they have that connection to specific service organizations or city associations or business alliances. So when you are looking at this row of folks are the extra people on top of the ward representatives that will be brought onto the task force. And then the numbers underneath it are how they may overlap with the different characteristics of the ward representatives that were on the previous slide. So when you are looking at it, we have a couple of areas of overlap, which is great, but a couple where you see zeros. So that's exactly why they were brought on, because they have that really specific association and can bring that perspective to the task force meetings. All right, so if we approve this current lineup, thinking back to baseball, if we approve this lineup that we have here, and that we have kind of gone through the process of vetting applications and going through nominations, we will have 25 members with representatives from each ward outside of Salem. We will have 20 residents, 4 business and property owners, 1 worker volunteer, and no students. So again, kind of recalling those graphs, we have a little bit of age diversity, but kind of mostly skewing towards kind of the older population, but we have folks from across the board. We have a little bit of racial, ethnic, language diversity. We have 8 folks who are non-white applicants and 5 applicants who speak a language other than English at home. And then we also have a little bit of diversity in housing, but again, not much, right? So when we're thinking of the pool of applicants that we started with, the majority of them were single-family homeowners and a couple of them rented. Doing with that what we can, we have 4 applicants who are report that they have earned less than a livable wage in the last 5 years, 1 who experienced shelter, food insecurity, and 1 person who rents. So, that to say, we have these folks on speed dial. So in addition to the 25 folks who were included as task force applicants that we're hoping to get approved here today, we have 2 alternates, Nathan and Gretchen, because life happens. And so we want to make sure that we can keep this work moving forward. We want to make sure that folks are able to stay engaged, and we want to make sure that we have that great representation on all of the task force meetings moving forward. So we have these 2 folks on deck. So next steps. As Colleen mentioned, the goal here today, do you want me to pass it back to you?
No.
Okay. As Colleen mentioned, the goal here today is to approve our lineup of task force applicants. If we achieve that, then what we'll go ahead and do, we put together a whole pre-read packet, again, because this material is complicated and very complex. So we're gonna give folks a little bit of homework before we kick off our inaugural task force meeting next Wednesday, the 30th.
Thank you. Is that it? All right, do we have questions? Councilor Gwynn.
Thank you for a great presentation. So looking at the council nominations, I was just curious, you don't have the mayor. So did the mayor make nominations?
I did.
Okay, 'cause yours are just not noted here.
The wording on that slide, I'm not sure, I actually had a question about the wording on the title of that slide as well. Those are really the people that the committee is recommending. So yeah, mine are I think on the next slide. Yeah. Other questions? Councilor Hoy.
Just think it's worth noting that Ward 6 beat Ward 5 in terms of applicants. So thank you very much.
Touche. Further, any other questions before we go to the motion? Councilor Nordyke.
Thank you. I have said before, I just want to highlight what I really enjoyed about this process was that we gathered more information from our applicants. We are a diverse city, and you don't know it until you actively recruit diverse members of our city to participate. And unlike our standard issue application for anyone who wants to volunteer and serve on any of our boards or committees or task forces, this one asks questions that really go to the core of the multiple types of diversity in our city. You know, language diversity, socioeconomic diversity, people who have experience making minimum wage, food insecurity, being homeless or without a home. These are just some of the forms of diversity we've never asked for in an application. But it's increasingly a common and shared lived experience for a lot of our residents, and I don't want them missing from the table where the decisions are made. So to me, it's really important that we, for the first time ever, included these kind of criteria, and I would love to see that incorporated and frankly an overhaul of our existing volunteer application. We can do a lot more to figure out who wants to serve and why do they want to serve, and how can we ensure that voices that have been traditionally marginalized have a say in some of the biggest decisions that we will make today and in the years to come.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further questions for staff? All right, Councilor Stapleton, do you have a motion?
I do. I move that we approve the slate of candidates for the City of Salem's Revenue Task Force as recommended by the Board and Commissions Appointments Committee.
And I will second that.
Motion by Stapleton, second by Nishioka. Councilor, to your motion.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your work on this, both of you. It was so fun to be with the Boards and Commissions Committee and go through all of these applicants and with your work kind of helping, or with your help working through all of the different, the many different areas that we were talking about and that Councilor Nordyke hit on as well. I think we've come up with a really great group of people, and I'm excited to see how we proceed and how the work flows from here.
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion? Councilor Nishioka.
Thank you, Mayor Hoy. I want to say thank you to the other 157 because it was so wonderful to see how many people were stepping up and wanted to be on this. And I felt bad that we couldn't have all of you, but it would not be a very effective group. So again, thank you all who applied, and just know that we did really work very hard at trying to capture diversity and in so many ways for selecting those that are on this list.
Thank you, Councilor. It was really a nice change from our normal mode on that committee where we're trying to find people to fill slots, and in this case, we had just an embarrassment of riches with so many applicants. It was really a nice change. Further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Counselor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Counselor Hoy.
Aye.
Counselor Nordyke.
Aye.
Counselor Varney.
Aye.
Counselor Stapleton.
Aye.
Counselor Nishioka.
Aye.
Counselor Phillips absent. Counselor Gwynn.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes, and we have a revenue task force.
Yay.
Now the hard work begins.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Councilor Gwynn, item 3.3A. No worries. Yes, please.
So I move staff recommendation to authorize the creation of a transportation project, Liberty Road South at Davis Road intersection improvements in the fiscal year 2024, the 2022 Safety and Livability Bond Construction Fund.
Second.
Motion by Gwynn, second by Nordyke. Counselor, to your motion.
I am so excited about this, and so I've only been on the council for a year, but at our neighborhood association meetings, Sunny Slope in particular, we have talked about this intersection almost every single meeting. And this is a great example of the city. So thank you to our Public Works Department for really stepping up and assisting the citizens in wards 4 and 7, well, and all of us, frankly, because this intersection is right by Crossler Middle School, and it is only a matter of time before we have a middle schooler or someone getting hit there. So that's the only reason I wanted to bring this forward, is just to say thank you to our neighborhood associations and thank you to Public Works.
Thank you, Counselor. I was mentioning to Counselor Nordyke over the weekend that I think this intersection has been the source of the most feedback and comments since during my almost 7 years on council. This intersection is such an important one, and I'm so excited to get this safety upgrade. Yeah. Any further discussion? Counselor Nordyke.
Thank you. I will speak in reason support in a moment, but I did have a question based on the public testimony. One of the persons who spoke in support of this motion has asked why the install date is scheduled tentatively for 2025 and not 2024. And I was told we'd have a member of staff available to explain.
I believe we have Mr. Alan Dannon, our acting Public Works Director, available.
Good evening. Yes, I'd be happy to field that question, Mayor and City Councilors. Alan Dannon, City Engineer in the Public Works Department. Thanks for your question, Counselor, about the schedule. And it's really the reason that we're taking this step is to bring some certainty to chart the path forward for this project. Right now, there's no land use condition on the current developments that are going through the process to actually require completion of the signal. They're making milestones along the way, including completing some design up till now. But the next phase where we could actually condition completion of the signal has not even entered the land use process yet. So by the city taking over delivery of the project, we can provide a more certain path forward. That being said, there's a number of steps to get the project complete, and there's a little more to this project than meets the eye. So there's the signal design, which I mentioned, that's about 60% complete. But we also have to design the improvements on the ground that go with that, ADA ramps and approaches to the intersection, and coming up with a good plan for traffic control to make sure that while construction's going on, it's safe with the school right next door. And then finally, the signal also needs to be connected with fiber optic from Kubler Boulevard all the way to Davis and Liberty. So there's a long stretch of fiber optic that needs to be installed so it can communicate with the rest of our signal system. So there's several months of design work once we take the product from the developer engineer to get it to ready to bid. We think we can have a contractor on board by roughly October, so this fall. And that would normally be good news. We could send them out there and start turning dirt. The issue with traffic signals is there's equipment there that has very long lead for delivery. And that includes the cabinets that the signal equipment goes in and the signal pole itself. The delivery time on those, we hear from the suppliers right now, is 30 weeks, which is 7 months and change. But it's not uncommon for projects that we're going through right now where that date comes and the supplier tells us, oh, we've had manufacturer delays 4 more weeks. We have service cabinets that we've been waiting on for 52 weeks for a couple of projects right now. We can mitigate that to some degree by making some orders ahead of time and supplying that to the contractor, but the signal pole itself is really something that the contractor has to order. So if you take that October date where the contractor gets a contract, they'll do their work to get an approval to order the signal pole, but you're still out into 2025 at that point before the signal pole shows up. They can do some work, get ready, and then the pole goes up. And the part that everybody wants to see, that signal out there controlling traffic, is at the very end. So that's the reason for the 2025 delivery date.
Thank you, Mr. Dan. And I think that's, when you start peeling back these projects that seem very simple up front, they're actually very complex. And that's a really great explanation of one that can get really complex. And yeah. Did you have more, Councilor Nordyke?
I did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No more questions for staff. Thank you for the thorough explanation. I appreciate that. I just want to highlight a few items from the public testimony we have received tonight since folks could not be here in person. First of all, on a personal note, my little sister was one of the first kids to attend Crossler Middle School. So we don't live in that area anymore, but when I think of safety, I can't help but imagine my little, 10-year-old sister being one of those kids going to school each day. And in fact, a couple of the folks who submitted testimony speak to that specifically. One person is a parent. She says both of her kids attended Crossler Middle School. A traffic light has been needed at this intersection for many years, long before the construction of the housing developments off of Rainier and Mildred. It wasn't a safe intersection then, and it's even worse now. Another resident says that her kids are not quite yet middle school age, but they're on their way. And she says that it's not safe for them to walk to Crossler Middle School as it is right now. So they're looking not only to the livability now, but in the future. And then next from Linda Miller, she has been our secretary at Sunny Slope Neighborhood Association for many years now. She's a recipient, one of our volunteer service awards. Linda has gone above and beyond, and I really wanted to name her specifically because of all of her tireless advocacy for this project since long before I was on council or Deanna Gwynn was on council as well. So I really appreciate her continuing to push for positive change here. So those are just some of the pieces of testimony we've received for tonight, but I can tell you that Councilor Gwynn and I have been getting an earful about this as well. So I also want to thank Gary Mizek, the sacrificial lamb, member of city staff, who we asked to come and to a neighborhood association so that he could help us answer the questions and address the frustration that a neighborhood feels when they see their community becoming more and more frequented by cars, by people driving at unsafe speeds. We know that traffic safety is an issue citywide. And when you're a counselor, you have to ask yourself, why should I be calling out my specific road when there's so many other roads that will benefit from traffic signals and so on. In this case, this has been decades in the making, and the development has continued vigorously since that time, since the building of Crossler Middle School and so on. So I hope my colleagues will be supportive of this motion tonight, and I appreciate the mayor for being supportive and his advocacy behind the scenes for this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there further discussion? Will the recorder please call the roll?
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Councilor Nordyke.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips absent. Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. We are on to information reports. Does anybody have anything on item 6A? 6B? 6C? Oh, 6B.
C.
C. Go.
Thank you, sir. That's the purchases, correct?
That's the purchases, yes.
Okay. Just a couple quick questions. One, I see that purchases were made from Northside Ford truck sales, and that's in Portland, right? Is that?
I think Mr. Eggleston is grabbing the microphone.
Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. I'm not sure of their location, but we can get back to you on that.
Yeah, I Googled, and I think it is, but just because folks are asking, and so am I, why would we go outside of Salem to do something like that? And I'd love an answer for that. Then I noticed
Would
that,
you like him to answer that now?
No, that's okay.
Okay.
Later is fine, unless you have it.
I've had discussions, but we can get you a formal answer.
Thank you. And then I noticed that I must be park related, that the city pays for umpires. Is that a thing?
Mr. Archer is ready to answer that one.
We do. For our adult softball leagues, we contract for that service, and then we also charge fees to the participants to help us cover the costs of those, of paying the umpires.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. The last thing of note was, sorry, one sec. Where'd it go? Sorry, folks. Oh, fireworks and Independence. What is that about? We have Independence Day fireworks display 2024, contract amount of $10,000 and $20,000. Is that?
Mr. Archer.
I think I can help with that one again. Again, Scott Archer, Deputy City Manager. We do our annual 4th of July Independence Day celebration, citywide celebration, and that's one of the costs is paying for we pay for a professional fireworks show and contract with the company to do that.
Awesome. I really appreciate the answers publicly because it's one thing for me to get an answer and pass it along. It's another thing to hear it from the source. So I really do appreciate that, you guys. Thanks a lot.
Anything on item 6D? 6E. All right, we have no first readings. Second reading.
Ordinance Bill Number 124, an ordinance declaring certain territory located at 572 Heil Lane Northeast, annexed to the City of Salem, prescribing its comprehensive plan map designation and zoning, and withdrawing the territory from the Marion County Fire District Number 1 and East Salem Sewer and Drainage District. Councilor Nordike.
Aye.
Councilor Varney.
Aye.
Councilor Stapleton.
Aye.
Councilor Nishioka.
Aye.
Councilor Phillips absent. Councilor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councilor Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilor Hoy.
Aye.
Mayor Hoy.
Aye, the ordinance is adopted. All right, we have no public comment under item 8 because we already disposed of it. We are adjourned.